Very good morning on this Friday. Business Live with me, Darren McCaffrey. Air traffic controllers in France have walked out again in protest today, forcing airlines to cancel more than 1,500 flights. The strike, which began yesterday, has already seen Ryanair cancel more than 400 flights. That number expected to rise. And EasyJet said it had cancelled 274 flights over the 2 days. We're expecting nearly 300,000 passengers to be affected. The controllers claim that they are worried about staff shortages and ageing equipment. But the Chief Executive of Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, is pretty furious, claiming that family summer holidays are being held to ransom. Delighted to say Michael O'Leary joins us live now from Ryanair's headquarters in Dublin. Michael, have you got an update just in terms of the impact on your passengers in regards to flights cancelled and the number of people who are or have been disrupted?
Yeah, Darren, good morning. Between yesterday and today, we've had to cancel just over 400 flights. About 72,000 Ryanair passengers had their flights cancelled needlessly by this recreational striking by French air traffic control. And the point we've been making both to the UK government and also to the European Commission is if you protected overflights, you kept the airspace over France open, about 360 of those 400 flights cancellations would be able to operate yesterday and today. About 60,000 of the 70,000 passengers would not have their flights disrupted. We've previously addressed this issue with Heidi Alexander. We continue to call on Ursula von der Leyen. Why are you not protecting these overflights? Why is the single market for air travel being disrupted by a tiny number of French air traffic controllers? And all we get is a shrug of their shoulders and nothing we can do. We point out there is. The Spanish, the Italians and the Greeks use minimum service legislation to protect overflights. They cancel local domestic flights. The problem is that the French do exactly the opposite. They protect the local domestic French flights and cancel all the overflights. And this is manifestly unfair. And we are calling on Ursula von der Leyen, who preaches about competitiveness and reforming Europe. If you're not willing to fix or protect overflights, then quit. And let somebody more effective do the job.
Do you think, though, when they talk about staff shortages, they talk about ageing equipment, and we know air traffic controllers are under pressure sometimes, and we've seen, look at what happened in the United States earlier on this year, and they're now looking at their air traffic control system and the pressures it's under. If there are concerns about safety, people have got the right to go out on strike, haven't they?
They do have the right to go on strike. We accept that. What they don't have the right to do is to close the sky. That's a French government decision and a failure of the European Commission to protect the single market. Trains regularly go on strike, but you don't close the railway lines. You don't close the motorways. We don't allow the shipping lanes to be closed. Why do we allow the sky over France to be closed just because a tiny number of French air traffic controllers want to go on strike?
But just on the principle basis of, do you accept that there may be concerns in air traffic control about a lack of staff, about staff being overworked, about the equipment being a bit out of date?
Absolutely not. These are the most underworked, overprotected labour force in Europe. They have modern equipment. The thing is, they go on strike every year in June and July in France. These are air traffic controllers, simply because it's recreational. 2 years ago, they were complaining they went on strike for 53 days because of Macron's pension reforms, which didn't even apply to them. Last year, they were striking because, I think, in protest over some other Ukraine. This year, they can't think of what else to strike. So, lads, what can we strike over? Oh, yeah, we think we're understaffed and we think that we're using old equipment. Now, the equipment is new. And if they're understaffed, the way to deal with understaffing is not to walk off the job and go on strike. It's to hire more air traffic controllers.
Okay.
So this nonsense that they're overworked or using old equipment is just that nonsense. It's simply another excuse for these guys to go on recreational striking, but they're entitled to do that. What we're entitled to expect, though, is that Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary in the UK, Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Union, will take steps to keep the skies open. Cancel the local French flights if you want to have French strikes, that's fine. But you shouldn't be cancelling flights going from Germany to Spain or from the UK to Italy.
Okay.
That is manifestly unfair, and we don't need French air traffic controllers to operate those overflights. We just need Ursula von der Leyen to get up off her well-paid backside and do something.
OK. Well, hopefully she'll be listening and your message got across, and indeed the Transport Secretary too. I just want to talk about a couple of other things, if I may, Michael. First of all, just in terms of baggage, because there'll still be people travelling with Ryanair this weekend, and you're changing the baggage allowance. How quickly is that going to come in, and why have you done it?
The European Union recently, about 2 weeks ago, agreed new rules for minimum bag sizes. They came up to the size of Ryanair's current bag allowance. We've always wanted to be slightly bigger, have a slightly bigger free carry-on bag allowance than the industry standards, and so we're adjusting ours upwards again. So starting in about 3 weeks' time, which gives us time to put new stickers on our baggage carousels, the free carry-on bag for every passenger on Ryanair will be 40 centimetres by 30 centimetres by 20 by 25 by 20. Is that right? Oh yeah, 40, 30 by 20. It's about an increase of about 20% on our current free bag. And we have it in place across the system within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
OK, 2 or 3 weeks, that's what passengers have to wait. Let's talk about a little bit of politics here in the UK. It's 1 year since Labour got into power. What did you make of events this week with Rachel Reeves crying in the Commons, the reaction of the markets, the idea that Labour hasn't necessarily got the fiscal discipline that it claims it came into office to try and restore?
Well, I think it's clear they don't have the fiscal discipline. You know, I mean, Labour arrived into office, said that the numbers were far worse than they had than they originally thought, and yet the first thing they did was come up with a massive pay increase for train drivers who were already overpaid in the UK, and a massive increase for health service workers. Now, to be fair, I would support the health service workers. I had very little sympathy for the train drivers. But, you know, as with all Labour governments, they're pretty poor at controlling spending. The UK is facing significant fiscal challenges, not least the commitment to raise defence spending. But, you know, this is a government that will be in place for 5 years. We do wish them well. There's certainly, we needed to change the incompetent Tory administration of the last 5 or 10 years, the morons who voted in favour of Brexit. And the UK, the way forward is closer ties with the European Union and a free trade deal with the US. They seem to have got the bones of a free trade deal with the US. What they now need is a much better or much closer both trading ties with the European Union and restore the free movement of people between the UK and Europe. The idea that they control their borders has been shown to be a complete failure. And yet, you know, Farage and his crew who were advocating Brexit and should be hanging their heads in shame are riding high in the polls because he's moved on to something else again.
That's true. I mean, I've noticed that you've talked about air traffic controllers being overpaid, Ursula von der Leyen, public sector workers. What about yourself? I hear that you've pocketed bonuses of more than 100 million euros, the largest in European corporate history. Frankly, are you worth it, Mr. O'Leary?
Absolutely. I'm one of the most underpaid chief executives in Europe. If I double the share price of Ryanair, in 2028, I will get to buy share options that could be worth about 100 million. I contrast that with Premiership footballers getting paid about 25 million a year. My bonus scheme runs over 10 years, so it's the equivalent of about 10 million a year. Okay. And hedge fund managers in London taking home 100 and 200 million a year.
So you're worth it. You're worth it.
Underpaid and underappreciated, Darren.
And just very finally then, are you going to take a holiday? Where does the boss of Ryanair go on holiday this summer?
And the boss of Ryanair stays at home here in Ireland because we're busy during the busy summer season trying to make sure all these flights run on time despite the French air traffic controllers. And then hopefully I can persuade Mrs. O'Leary to go down for a weekend in the sun in Portugal later on in September, October when the children go back to school.
OK. Never dull, always interesting, and we appreciate your time. Michael O'Leary there.
Thanks, Darren. Good to talk to you.
The head of Ryanair. Thank you.